and welcome to My Brain Is A Wonderland, a podcast for neurodivergent women and the people who love them. Welcome back, everybody. This is Emily with you here, talking about everything to do with being late diagnosed neurodivergent. I was diagnosed with ADHD and autism at the age of 34. If you want to hear more about how that happened and how that came about, go back to the first episode. I discussed there what led me to getting the diagnosis and how it came about. But today, I want to talk about the misdiagnosis that I had in my childhood. I'd spoken about that a little bit in the first episode, that there had been a specific symptom that I had that was seen by a teacher. I was referred to a doctor, and nothing came of it. So I wanted to talk about that, the specifics of that, and what that experience was like, and what it was like later coming to terms with that fact, that someone had recognized something was not typical, they tried to help me, and it didn't work. So I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. I'll start with symptoms that I had from honestly being born. From literally the moment I was born, I had symptoms that would be recognized as potentially autistic symptoms, and I had ADHD symptoms when I was a young child. And so when I was born in a hospital, like most babies are, I guess, I don't know, my mom says I didn't cry. I didn't cry at all. And that I don't think is typical. But she said that I just laid there with my eyes bugged out looking around. I was chosen to be the demonstration baby at the hospital to show new moms how to bathe babies because I was quiet and easy to deal with. And then I ended up vomiting all over the nurse because I'm guessing sensory overload. But at the time they thought I was allergic to milk or that I had, issues with being moved around and that kind of thing. But I think that was sensory overload. Then when I grew up a little bit, I don't know if this happened when I was a baby, but when I was a toddler, I had intense public meltdowns, really intense ones, screaming, kicking, crying. And I had bathroom issues when I went to school. And I also was told that I was a hyperactive child and that I couldn't have certain sugars and colorings and all these different things. So there were loads of little symptoms that were there, and I'll probably do another episode about all the different symptoms that were there in my childhood. But the one that sticks out to me, that is where the misdiagnosis came from, is not responding to my name. So this is a super common symptom of autism, not responding to your name. I think it's probably up there with not making eye contact. If you do one or both of those things, it's immediately, kind of thought, oh, and if you definitely have autism, and if you're lining up anything at all, your toys or anything, you definitely are autistic. And so, in the 90s, and I don't know, I don't watch a lot of TV now that's kind of medical or on networks and stuff. But in the 90s, it was on TV a lot that there would be a baby born, always a boy, and someone would notice that this baby was either not responding to their name and or not making eye contact. This happened if you've seen Scrubs, it happens to a doctor in that show. If you've seen ER, a famous show from the 90s with George Clooney, it happens in that show. And it's male doctors with male children, and another doctor, I think, notices that something is different. And the difference is that they're not responding to their name, they can't get their attention, and they won't look at them. So this is not just a symptom that doctors know about, it's a symptom that is out there in the media, it's a stereotypical symptom is what I would say. And so this is something that I think was mostly commonly discussed around boys, right? Like autism was I think ADHD too, don't quote me on that, but I think both, weren't they first, quote unquote recognized in boys, and then it was kind of, they were both seen as boys things, boy issues. That was my thing that they noticed. So when I was in preschool, which would have been, I don't know, 2 to 4 years old, 2 to 5, I did not always respond to my name. My mom actually ran the preschool I was at, so I think there were probably, that affected what people thought and how it was addressed, right? Because there wasn't an unbiased person there observing how I didn't respond to my name. But basically what happened is I was obsessed with The Wizard of Oz. Still am. It's one of my special interests. I absolutely love it. The first gift from my husband of 16 years ago as a gift for my birthday was an annotated book of The Wizard of Oz book with all these annotations about the history and everything. I'm super obsessed with it, always have been. And so when I was a toddler in preschool, I wanted to be called Dorothy. That's the main character in The Wizard of Oz, if you don't know, Dorothy Gale, and I wanted my name to be Dorothy. There was another name I wanted to be called as well, I just can't remember it now. I think it was maybe Aurora after Sleeping Beauty. She was my favorite princess in Disney. Something like that. It wasn't Ariel, might have been something else, but I wanted to be called other names, and the main one was Dorothy. And if you look back at my artwork from preschool, most of them will have the name written on there, Dorothy, in the corner. There's stories from my mom and from my family growing up that I wanted to be called Dorothy, and I was so stubborn about it that I wouldn't respond to my actual name, Emily. So they would say, Emily, Emily, and then they say that they would say Dorothy, and I would respond to it. And I don't know that this has been investigated or studied or anything researched in the community, but I internalized that as being difficult. So all through my life, that sounds like I'm pretty difficult and stubborn, right? It sounds like I want to be called a different name, which sounds a bit silly, sounds a bit strange. And the fact that I won't respond to my own name makes me seem quite difficult. So that is how I was narrated that age, that's how I believed in myself that age, and that's the stories that were told to me about myself at that age. Then what happened is I went to elementary school at the age of 5, and in my first year of elementary school, I had this amazing teacher. Her name was Ms. Nickel. I'll never forget her. She was such a sweetheart. And my mom always said to me, well, all kindergarten teachers are nice, they're all fluffy and nice, but I felt like she got me, in a way. I really connected with her. She understood me in a way that I don't think I'd felt before, and had empathy for me in a way I didn't think I'd felt before. And basically what happened is I was in school for my first year ever, from age 5 to 6, and she noticed I didn't respond to my name. And she's a trained teacher, right? She knows what she's supposed to be looking for developmentally, psychologically. And she noticed that she would have to put her hand on me. She would go, Emily, 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 and then put her hand, on my shoulder, and then I would look at her. And she said to my mom, you need to get this looked at. They thought I might be deaf or hard of hearing because I didn't respond to my name, but I responded physically. So I went I was raised, if you've listened to my other episodes, I'm English, American naturalized citizen for over a decade. And I was raised in the UK where we have free healthcare, the NHS system. So I was referred to that system. There's stuff in place to test for, if you think a child is hard of hearing when they first go to school. And I remember going for this test. They put you in this kind of glass booth and, play those. I think you probably have headphones on. I don't remember. And they play little beep, boop, bop, boop, of different levels, different words. And you have to raise your hand if you hear a sound. If you don't hear a sound, blah, blah, blah. And I remember doing that test because I remember being in the tank, in the booth, and it was probably quite a strange experience for me. So it's in my head as this big memory. I was tested for my hearing, and surprise, 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 my hearing was stellar. So that's not my auditory processing. My auditory processing is actually not very good, and that is processing long-form sentences and things that people say. But in terms of hearing, I could hear perfectly. I could hear everything, every sound, and in this test, I probably knew I was supposed to be present, correct, and working hard. And I've said this before, I'm a big people pleaser for authority. Unless you tell me what to do, then I'm not so much. But I passed this test with flying colors. And I don't know if this came from the doctor. I don't know if this came from my mom. I don't know if maybe Ms. Nickel confirmed it. I would really hate to hear that because she was such a sweetheart and I just love her so much and felt like she supported me. But it came out, this kind of narrative, that I was difficult, that I was stubborn. It continued that narrative of me wanting to be called Dorothy and not wanting to respond to my own name. And so I internalized this narrative for decades, okay? I was, age 2.5 to 5 during the preschool years, and was age 5 to 6 when I had this hearing test and was told, you're difficult, you just don't pay attention, you're not listening. And that was really hard for me. And I really, I was 5 years old, 5 to 6, I'm now 36. I was diagnosed when I was 34 years old. That was almost 30 years of telling myself, you're difficult, you're annoying, you don't listen to people, you don't pay attention, why do you do that, you're so stubborn. And I would tell myself this and make jokes about it, that, I didn't respond to my own name, that's how difficult I am. And I would say that to my husband when I first met him, and we'd make jokes about it because I did seem kind of stubborn, because I had a lot of boundaries around things. And so that really affected my self-esteem negatively. And it really made me feel like I was some kind of way when I wasn't. And when I got my diagnosis, it really erased all of that. It allowed me to be who I am. It allowed me to say and think the things that I actually am, instead of saying, I am quite difficult from that, when I don't even know if I felt that I was difficult. It was put upon me that I was difficult, and I couldn't see that there would be any other reason why I wouldn't listen. But I tell you, growing up, all through my life, I had this issue. I had this issue where I would talk. Someone would say, talk or something. I remember one time in class, I got up to talk. We were separated in groups and they were going group to group, and they always ask for a volunteer to talk. And I stood up to talk and I was talking out loud. And I remember seeing the people in my group at my table look at me kind of strangely. And then I came out of this fog of talking and the teacher was shouting at me, saying, "Stop talking, stop talking." And it's because I'd spoken about this in the episode about the nativity play with my accent. I was often picked to speak because I enunciated and was loud when I was a child. And so I would often just take that on because a lot of kids didn't want to do it. But apparently this teacher was tired of that, was tired of me taking the lead all the time and didn't want me to talk and wanted someone else to talk. And I didn't hear her shouting at me. But I remember the eyes on me while I was talking, and I'm thinking, why are you staring at me? And they were staring at me because she was shouting at me and I couldn't hear her. There was another time that I remember being in the cafeteria, age around 17, in sixth form college, which is the last 2 years of high school for the Americans. And I was in the cafeteria looking at the food under the glass, screen. And I was staring, and all of a sudden, this girl that I knew, who'd been in some of my classes, was waving her hands in front of my face, emphatically waving at me. And I went, "Oh, hi." And she looked at me, quizzically and was like, "Hi, Emily, it's me, And what I realize now is that she had been trying to get my attention for a while. And in neurotypical land, a while is like 5 to 10 seconds, right? If you're saying someone's name, Emily, hey, Emily, are they ignoring you? Why aren't they talking to you? So that happened my entire life, where I can literally just be out in public or wherever, and someone will try to get my attention or say Emily, and I will not hear them. I don't know what that is, but I mean, it's the autism, obviously, but I don't know. I haven't looked up any research about this. I don't know that there has been any research. I don't know that they know why. But just for everyone out there, I just want you to know that it is not your fault all the time. I internalized this, just ragging on myself all the time for 3 decades. And it's not to say that I'm not responsible for the things that I say, the things that I do when I am actually being difficult, when I am frustrated and say things to people I don't mean or do mean but shouldn't really say them out loud. You still have the space to be who you are, and this is another reason I recommend getting diagnosed. Again, no judgment if you don't, you're always welcome here. But if you're wondering or on the fence, I definitely recommend it, because I would not have realized that. I got diagnosed with autism and ADHD, and then spoke to my therapist, my psychologist, who I'd been working with for several months, and said, and we both discussed it, you remember I said that I'd had a hearing test, I didn't respond to my name. And there was all this forgiveness in the talk with my therapist, all of this, acceptance of myself that you don't always hear. It doesn't mean you're not listening. It doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean you're stubborn. It doesn't mean you're an ass. It means you are who you are and people don't understand you. Maybe you don't even understand yourself. So that is the story of my misdiagnosis that could have been, that not responding to your name is socially, popular culture-wise, psychologically, that everyone knows this. Everyone knows that that is a classic sign of autism. Everybody. And it was missed. It was doctors, teachers, parents. They said I was something I wasn't. And that was a lot to deal with when I first got diagnosed. I definitely oscillated between being happy I was diagnosed and angry it hadn't been done sooner. Now I'm mostly just happy that I was diagnosed at all. My grandmother was diagnosed with bipolar in her 50s or 60s. A lot of people get misdiagnosed. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. And the fact, that she got diagnosed with anything in her 50s and 60s is both shocking and revelatory. This is insane. This is insane that diagnoses are being missed for decades. That's enough. But the fact that they're being missed on people who constantly present with the actual symptoms that are discussed in the medical field, but are ignored, probably because you're a woman. I said before, it was displayed in males, they would say, and all the media around autistic individuals used to be male. And it's just so devastating when you get these diagnoses. And I just want you to know that I had the same experience as you. I was devastated. I felt empowered and sad all at the same time. And I still do. I still feel this thing that there was something missing. That what if I had known? What if I'd known earlier? What if I'd known at any time earlier? It didn't have to be 5. It could have been 15. It could have been 25. It could have been 30. Just any earlier than I was. But it happened when it did. And I'm grateful that it happened at all. And that's what you have to cling to, I think. That there are people out there who will never be diagnosed, ever. That they have no idea what they're dealing with. No one around them does. They'll never have access to healthcare. They'll never discover that part of themselves. So I am grateful that I now know who I am in this way. And anyone who's listening, if this is helping you get to that point to figure out who you are, I'm so happy. This is why I'm doing this. I want to share myself with others who are going through what I'm going through. And I want you to find yourself, find who you are, whatever that is. Okay? And with that, I want to end this episode. I got a little teary-eyed there. Oh, that was an emotional one. But I just want to say, if you want to connect with me, if this resonated with you, please reach out. I have an Instagram and a TikTok under my Brain Is A Wonderland pod. I have an email that you can email me directly at mybrainisawonderlandpod@gmail.com. And if you're liking what you're hearing, please leave a review wherever you're listening. I'm on a bunch of different streams. So please just leave some feedback. I'd love to hear from you in any way possible. And I'll see you next time on My Brain Is A Wonderland. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.